Hello and a very warm welcome to another episode of India Matters. Remember, over a week since Operation Sindoor happened, the country continues to be on war alert. The Prime Minister went to the Adampur base. The Raksha Mantri today went to the Bhuj base, signaling to the world that India is fully war ready. But it isn't just Pakistan that has been struck by Indian missiles, because today, ladies and gentlemen, the gloves have come off in a very, very different way. And I'm going to tell you how right here on India Matters. There comes a moment in every long war when a country stops caring what the world thinks. For India, that moment is now. This week, India took the gloves off, and not on the battlefield, but on the global hypocrisy industry. The government has finally begun calling out the sanctimonious American-controlled institutions that for decades have enabled, whitewashed and quietly funded the terror state next door. Do I even need to name it? And if that makes the world uncomfortable, well, good. Let's start with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Today, India's Defence Minister said what needed to be said, that the IMF quite literally has blood on its hands. Billions of dollars in financial aid were pumped into Pakistan, 1 billion after the Pahalgam terror attack. Let that sink in. The IMF, supposedly a neutral global body, in effect, bankrolled a state that had just waged a terrorist war on Indian citizens, innocent Indian citizens. Yes, the IMF has its so-called obligations, but when those obligations end up funding bullets, bombs, and the infrastructure of jihad, someone has to be held accountable, because what the IMF did, wittingly or not, but well, let's face it, wittingly, was signal to the world that terrorism has no consequences. That even if you kill Indian tourists, blow up soldiers, and trigger a cross-border conflict, you will still be rewarded with bailout money. That is not just immoral, it is evil, and let's call it that. Second, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA. For years, this body has acted like Pakistan and India are nuclear twins, like there's some moral equivalence. Like Pakistan isn't an unstable, radicalized, irresponsible state that uses nuclear blackmail as an insurance policy for its terrorist army. So here's a simple question on India Matters tonight. Why has the IAEA never taken a single step against Pakistan? Why has it never questioned how a nuclear state can sponsor terrorism and still be treated like a responsible power? The Indian government today, not some fringe element, the government, the Raksha Mantri today, rightly said what should have been said a long time ago, that the IAEA's silence on Pakistan is complicity. Third, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, the Rolls-Royce of useless organizations, the United Nations. A bloated relic that's increasingly unfit for any purpose. Whether it's the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force on Terror Financing, the United Nations Security Council, or any of the alphabet soup institutions under the UN umbrella. None of them have lifted a finger as Pakistan turned terrorism into a national sport. All they've done is issue pathetic statements about de-escalation and restraint, as if India and Pakistan are morally equivalent actors, as if it was India that sent terrorists to kill innocents in Pahalgam. This conflict, viewer, has exposed them all. Their ecosystem of cowardice, where being balanced means equating victim and aggressor, where global leaders repeat the same boilerplate lines about peace and dialogue, ignoring the fact that India is reacting, not initiating, defending, not attacking. And here's the bitter truth. Very few nations stood 100% with India, unequivocally. Most chose silence, some chose balance, almost none chose justice. That tells you what you need to know, but you needn't feel too bad about it. India has now sent a multi-party band of members of parliament to reach out diplomatically to other countries, signaling that we do care about our friends in the world, we do care about global support. But calling out global institutions that pretend to be neutral is where the line has been drawn today. So yes, India's war on terror is a lonely one, and perhaps it always has been. But this time, New Delhi didn't waste energy too much building consensus. It didn't get bogged down in the narrative war. It didn't waste time. It struck, it sent a message, and it simply has now moved on. Because maybe, just maybe, India doesn't need the world's approval anymore. Maybe India doesn't need the IMF's lectures, the IAEA's silence, or the United Nations' amazing, glorious incompetence. Maybe the only way to be heard is to act. It's a lonely road ahead, but it's ours, and we'll walk it alone if we must. That is the truth. Anyone still sneering at the public anger against Turkey, that's our second big story tonight, needs a serious reality check, viewer, because this isn't just a case of bad optics or sensitive diplomacy. This is a full-blown betrayal, and India has every right to be angry. In fact, it's overdue. Start with the May 2025 conflict. Turkish Bayraktar drones supplied directly to Pakistan were used to strike Indian military assets and population centers. Even worse, reports confirm that 2 Turkish drone operators were killed in the Indian Air Force strikes in Pakistan, which means Turkey wasn't just arming Pakistan, it was actively helping them target India. That's not neutrality, that's not diplomacy, that's a hostile act. It is true that the Indian government hasn't acted against the Turkish government itself, but there is anger. And while some pseudo-intellectuals love playing the let's not overreact game, let me ask them this. What is your threshold for outrage? Why do you judge people for being angry with Turkey? When a NATO member nation is physically embedded in an attack on India, are we supposed to shrug it off? Is our emotion and anger wrong? And let's talk about Celebi Aviation, a company part-owned by Erdogan's daughter, handles ground ops and cargo terminals at 9 major Indian airports, including Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. And I'd like to ask the government too, what were you thinking in giving these companies such a contract? A country that has genuine inroads with Turkey. One of them overlooks a zone that includes the Prime Minister's plane and electronic warfare aircraft. And guess what? The daughter's husband is the man behind the Bayraktar drones used against India in this tension. This isn't just a security risk, it's a security scandal. Add to that the fact that Turkish Airlines pilots in India are ex-Turkish Air Force. Put 2 and 2 together and you're staring straight at the potential for embedded surveillance, military intelligence gathering, and soft espionage networks under the guise of civil aviation. This is not scaremongering. These are facts. You can look it up. Still think this is just about one speech at the United Nations or explicit support for Pakistan? Let's go wider. Turkey has been a consistent enabler of Pakistan, whether it's blocking India at the NSG, opposing our permanent seat at the UN Security Council, backing Pakistan's narrative in the OIC, or stoking anti-India fires in European capitals through diaspora politics. It's all part of Erdogan's pan-Islamist game. India's decision to downgrade ties, well, only commercially right now, not diplomatically, is not only justified, it is strategic. Of course, there are hypocrisies as far as the system is concerned, from ejecting Celebi, which has now moved court against India, from sensitive contracts to strengthening ties with Turkey's historic adversaries like Greece, Cyprus, and Armenia. New Delhi has made it clear this is not business as usual, but will it also act against the government? Well, now to the tourism lobby. Yes, Indians only make up less than 1% of Turkey's tourist inflow. But here's the thing, that 1% is premium spend, high-value travelers. You better believe it'll hurt if that 1% evaporates. So switch plans, go to Greece, go to Bali, go anywhere, but don't fund a government that's literally helped target your forces and supports the targeting of civilians. And to the armchair sneerers who mock this anger, please spare us the sanctimony. We've heard it before, but this time people, Indians, are wide awake. Turkey crossed a line not just diplomatically but militarily. This isn't just an insult, it's a threat. And India is right to respond, even piecemeal, with cold, hard consequences whenever they come. Because if a country helps a terrorist state attack you, it's not a friend, it's an enemy. And on the other side of this very short break, I have a big exclusive interview with a wartime general, a chief who was DGMO during the Kargil war, General NC Vij, who drops a big bomb. He says, never trust Pakistan. War is always an option. That's next. India has just conducted historic military airstrikes inside Pakistan against military targets and before that on terror targets. The two countries have come to a ceasefire understanding, a very tentative understanding for now, but the two countries also remain in a state of maximum war alert and operational readiness. What's happening inside the system? Today we have a very special guest who's joined us, who's also come out with a brand new book, General NC Vij, Alone in the Ring, Decision-Making in Critical Times. And I cannot think of a more appropriate guest to discuss the very complex and evolving issue at hand that faces the country at this time. General NC Vij, an honor to have you here, sir. First of all, congratulations on your new book. Alone in the Ring actually describes how India, the leadership, and the decision-making process right now must actually be taking these momentous military decisions against Pakistan. And in this book, you've actually talked about being in the hot seat yourself. I'd like to start by asking you about your reading of the current situation, and then we will come to the things that you've done, sir.
See, Shiv, in many ways, I think this book has turned out to be prophetic because I have in this book written that our Western neighbors are so incorrigible and so untrustworthy that you really cannot say anything about them for sure. And despite all the efforts by India to maintain peace, they have been indulging into the terrorism promoted by the state.
Yeah.
And that's what this book is all about, because it's mainly about the last 6 years of my service, experience gained in that. And during that period, Kargil happened, Prakram happened, and many other things happened. So this is something which I always felt would happen, because while talking to Pakistani counterpart of mine, General Turkiye, you could make out that telling lies is a part of their very ethos and ecosystem.
I want to touch upon that for just a moment, because, you know, right now, General Vij, we are looking at the DGMO hotline conversations happening between the two sides. You've been the DGMO during the last war we fought with Pakistan. During the Kargil war, you were decorated with an Uttam Yudh Seva medal, if I'm not mistaken, for your role during that time as well. Tell us about these conversations. Right now, you're saying that the DGMO conversations, you cannot trust what they're saying. Does that hold even now? You cannot trust what they're saying?
So if I can say, you know, once I asked my counterpart, okay, I said, look, where have you been during the last week? You missed out the discussion, and your number two with the General Kiani, he came on the line. He said, look, ऐसा है जनरल साहब, हमारे बच्चे आ गए थे तो उनकी तफरी में हम बिजी हो गए. तो मैं कहा बच्चे तो आपके हमारे पास आए हुए तो आप क्यों फिक्र कर रहे हैं? Leave it to us, we'll take care of them. So you know, this is the problem with them. And once I told him that look, after point 5140 was captured, that we have found lots of maps and all that which are duly marked, and even their identities. So all that he could reply was AMAK. AMAK means stooge or stupid. So that's what the problem with them is. They will not speak the truth.
And would you say that right now, you know, of course, our military setup knows how to take care of things. It's a professional setup.
They do.
Like, you know, like you were part of it as well. So you know that better, sir. But right now, you know, India has agreed to this ceasefire understanding. It's not a ceasefire, it's an understanding, which we should be specific about. What kind of alertness levels would there be in the country right now? We would still be war ready even right now, just a few days after that understanding. Am I right?
Yes, I think with our past experience and now what has happened, and with no certainty of how would they react in future, the war readiness would be maintained. it will be maintained at all times now, at least for quite some time, till the time we are sure as to what line are they going to adopt.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister has made it very clear as to what does he expect from them. Then any state act of terrorism from them would be taken as an act of war. If after that also they indulge into this, then there will be problem for them. And so level of alertness would be maintained at the top level, especially along the ceasefire line. One is not very sure as to how would they act.
What is your overall assessment of how the military operation was carried out, sir? The most visible aspect of it, of course, was the Air Force, but we do know that the land forces along the line of control, and you played a very big role in, the line of control as we know it today. The fencing system happened under your watch as well. I was there in Kupwara and Uri just a few weeks ago, reporting from the front lines as well. What is your assessment as a person who has been a commander of the forces about what Operation Sindoor has really achieved? Because it is being described as the most kinetic and most maybe audacious non-war military action that has ever been taken against Pakistan.
I think I'll then again quote the Prime Minister and pick up from there and take it in the reverse order. Firstly, all along we've been worried about the nuclear responses, and even our anti-terror operations were restricted to quite some extent. And similarly, in Kargil war also, you see, we didn't cross the line of control. We have attacked the same objective, which perhaps we militarily not very sound, but that was the restriction imposed. So now the PM has said that, look, your nuclear bluff is off. We will not accept. We will not take it as a serious thing. We've upgraded our response to them many fold, threefold, fourfold, and attacked 9 targets and gone into Punjab. So which we have never done earlier.
Yes.
So they now know that we will go to any extent to make sure that our national integrity is taken care of and safeguarded. That is one. Number two, all the 3 forces were involved.
Yes.
The Navy was also involved. They blocked the Karachi port in its own way. And the land forces, of course, were very alert along the line of control. And Air Force went in and the missiles were fired. And nowadays you have a weapon system where of the system, you can fire from 200 kilometers.
Yeah.
So all kinds of things have been done, and they've been told that we will not now hesitate to go to any extent to make sure that they are put into a great difficulty. As it is, this country is economically totally broke, and they're taking loans to pay off their own debt.
Correct.
So they have to learn sometime. The problem in Pakistan is, perhaps, I cannot say for sure, because like when Kargil happened, the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said, look, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So I do not know how much the present
Who
Prime
to believe.
Who to believe.
Yeah.
So, and even the Secretary of Defense,
the Defense Minister,
Khwaja
Asif.
Yeah. He's made all kinds of statements. The
Ridiculous
American Mark Rubio called the chief and talked to him, which is very unusual. So what kind of a country are we dealing with now? We've come to know very well as to who's the controlling authority. And he's a jihadi general anyway. This is what you people also call.
No, it's true. I mean, and we have no qualms in labeling him that. If people saw General Asim Munir's speech just a few weeks before the Pahalgam attacks happened, many people say that, it was the kind of atmosphere that he had created that may have led to it. But
maybe he set the stage for that.
Absolutely right. General Vij, you were the Director General Military Operations during Kargil. You were India's Chief of the Army Staff between 2003 and 2005. You have seen Kargil, you have seen Parakram, which was the last time the two countries almost came to a full-fledged war as well. I want to ask you, all these 2 decades later, is war an option? Many things have changed in the region. Many things have changed for India. India has left Pakistan far behind in the most exponential way, whether it is economy, whether it is achievements, whether it is regional power, whether it is international standing. Is war an option at this point of time? The reason I ask this question is because it seemed like India was fully prepared to finish the job this time.
Yes, I think so. The way they went about it. And if the Pakistanis had not come back to us asking for a talk between the 2 DGMOs, I think we would have gone to any extent, to my assessment, I don't know. I have not talked to any one of them to take care of it. But since you asked me the question, is war an option? if you ask a soldier, I don't think war is an option.
Yeah.
Though it is our job to fight, and they will very well fight. And they would be perhaps itching to fight at time. But war never solves much. Ultimately, you have got to get to the negotiating table. But to bring the other man to his senses and understanding, level of understanding, as Napoleon said, if you put the gun on the other's head, his rationale gets much improved, and he becomes far more sensible to talk to. So war is an option to bring the other man to a reasonable level of understanding,
right,
and to get talking more sense.
And that is perhaps why India also, from a position of power, agreed to this understanding, where Pakistan, from a position of being completely battered with these airstrikes, which had seriously compromised their air defense capability and their fighter force, had practically pleaded for this ceasefire, and India agreed. And I share your assessment on that. I want to talk about the idea of POK. POK is an issue that is very emotive for all of us Indians. It is a manifesto promise by political parties in the country, some political parties in the country. I'm sure the Indian Army has always had, plans. If push comes to shove, there would, I'm sure, be plans somewhere about how India can achieve this huge military objective of taking POK back. And I say this with caution, because I understand that it's not something that can simply happen, with the blink of an eye. But is that ever going to be a possibility, sir? Bringing POK back?
Well, as you said, I'm sure there are some plans, must be, and but I really can't talk much about them. But if the government so desires, if the country so desires, well, why not? If you can do Kargil, perhaps you can do that also.
Very interestingly put, because in Alone in the Ring, which is decision making in critical times, one cannot think of a time more critical than this. A red line was crossed in the post-Pahalgam period, General Vij, and it seems like everything has changed since then. You mentioned the nuclear umbrella bluff that India has called. The Prime Minister enunciated it. He said, no longer will India, respond to nuclear blackmail, allowing terror to flourish in its shadow. 2, terror attacks will be interpreted as an act of war, which means that when a terror attack takes place, we will not respond by hitting terror camps, but we will not distinguish between military and terror targets. And number 3, a retaliation is assured, no matter what scale the terror attack is. Given all this, and some people are calling this the Modi doctrine. He talked about this at the Adampur Air Base as well. I want to ask you, will this deter Pakistan? Deterrence is another word that is of great value in the military. It is not just about punishing or imposing punitive actions on Pakistan, which India has undoubtedly done. The bigger, more complex question is, have we taught them a lesson enough not to try anything like this again?
Well, really, I can't be that prophetic.
Yeah.
Because very difficult. That country has its own mechanism of working. The dynamics of working is entirely different to a normal country. Like in India, things will happen far more differently. How will it happen in their country? Who's controlling whom? That is the problem.
Yeah.
If the political leadership is controlling, maybe they will. If the army is controlling, maybe there's a problem, because the army has to retain its relevance. And that has been a problem right through, that the army must remain the predominant figure. So I wonder whether it will deter, but it should, to any sensible person, it should deter, because we are a far stronger country, far more stronger country, and we have shown the world that we are very reasonable. Because if you recall the first briefing, which was given by the Foreign Secretary and the 2
lady officers,
lady officers, who did a very good job. It was, spoken in words like, these are absolutely proportionate. We have only gone after the terrorist targets.
Yeah. Equal domain.
So, we have our part made the things very clear. That look, we are doing it only against terrorism. We have nothing against you as a country. And we don't want to escalate. They escalated.
Yes.
By killing 20 people and then going on the criminal lines. That is the worst of all. It has never happened before. So, how much will they remain reasonable and rational and understanding? or what are their internal compulsions. And in any case, in Pakistan, to remain as a state together, I think Kashmir has been a weapon to unite the country. So it's very difficult to understand their mechanics of functioning.
I am very tempted to say that this is more than prophetic, because in some ways for India to have done what it did just now and perhaps do what it is prepared to do going forward, with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund giving $1 billion to Pakistan in the wake of Pahalgam, the IAEA not saying anything about Pakistan nukes, United Nations, my personal view is that it's an utterly useless organization when it comes to India and Pakistan. The defense minister today has pointed a finger at both the IMF and yesterday at the IAEA as well. It seems like these are global organizations, but we are alone in the ring for our objectives for large parts, sir.
Yeah, this is a very big thing now between India and Pakistan. Even when I go back to my own time when I was in service, we had sent troops to Sierra Leone.
Yes.
And if you recall, we had 220 people, our peacekeepers taken as hostage.
Correct.
Even nobody was prepared to help you. I was as a DGMO, I took a delegation to UK, US and UN. And came back fully convinced that nobody is going to help you. They are not even empathizing with you. We sent our own troops.
Yes.
And carried out a beautiful operation 10,000 kilometers away.
Absolutely.
And helped ourselves. So India has to fend for itself. There is no doubt about it. And we are in a position to do it. And we have a national leadership which is very, very strong.
Yeah.
And the way we have put across our view and the way we have acted. A warning was given. And we have told them now not to cross the line.
Yeah, yeah.
So that line really has been drawn.
Yes.
Now, how do we move further from here, Shiv? This is left to their better wisdom.
And we trust our forces completely. Like you said, there has been political clarity in terms of what India's objectives are. And therefore, General Vij, for not only being prophetic with the title of your new book, which we congratulate you about, but also, being so candid with us on a sensitive issue that requires a great deal of understanding, a domain where fierce views one way or the other usually don't work because there are so many shades of grey in warfare. I thank you very much, sir, for giving us your time here on NDTV.
And I think our government has been so clear about what we intend. And that is, I think, a very big plus point of Sindoor. We've conveyed our message to the world, to Pakistanis and to the world very clearly as to how much can we tolerate.
And hopefully we will have more clarity in the days to come. Thank you, General Vij. An honor to speak to you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure talking. Thank you.